As a result, we tend to build a lot of military equipment and stuff. And that is important to President Trump because it maintains assembly lines, it keeps them open. So if you really want to aggravate President Trump and you will really want to harm him in some way, you do exactly what your prime minister has done and say, fine, we're not going to use any of your equipment. We're going to use whatever is built in Europe. So that's the easy answer to the question about Canada right now and the attitude towards Trump.
Final question to Colonel. The Golden Dome. Donald Trump's talking about having a Golden Dome, not just over Israel, which is a much smaller area, but one over North America. And he's told Mark Carney, it's for $61 billion. You too can have membership in the North American Golden Dome. You've referred to the Golden Dome over Israel as a sieve because very, very little of the effort made to stop every missile from coming in actually succeeds. A lot of missiles are getting through. This is not a foolproof system. But two parts to this. Do you think the Golden Dome for North America is even militarily realizable? Is it or is this some sort of abstraction, much the way the Strategic Defense Initiative was under Ronald Reagan? That was a great idea, but the technology wasn't there in the 80s. I'm not sure the technology is here in the 2020s to make the Golden Dome work. And what concerns me is that Palantir is involved in this. And could this become not a mechanism for aerial defense, but for surveillance? And is this a possibility?
Well, that's quite a question. First of all, you're right. The Iron Dome is what you're referring to in Israel, and that has turned out to be far, far less effective than as advertised. But you've got to look at what people do in the defense industries, whether it's Israel or here or anywhere else. They always are hyperbolic and make claims that they're simply not founded in reality. And that's the first part. The second part is the Golden Dome is very clearly a warmed over reiteration of the Strategic Defense Initiative. And the Strategic Defense Initiative was very, very popular. Why? It's a money pit. It transfers billions and billions of dollars in wealth from the American people to various corporate entities in the defense industry and also to some extent in the scientific community. I was actually teaching at West Point when Teller, the great architect of the Strategic Defense Initiative, came to speak to us. He was trying to present himself as kind of an Einstein. Some of you may remember that Einstein sent a letter back in the 1930s to Franklin Roosevelt and told him that he knew the key figures in Germany who were really the geniuses behind modern physics, and he knew that they could conceivably build an atomic weapon. And so he urged FDR at the time to look into building one here before they did. And as a result, you got the Manhattan Project. Well, I think Teller has tried to present himself as another Einstein. And of course, you had only too many people eager to chip in and join this throng that would build this perfect dome over the United States that they called the SDI. You're right. We couldn't break the laws of fractal mathematics or physics and ultimately build force fields on the Star Trek model, which would work. Unfortunately, we can't build them. We can't power them. Now, perhaps the aliens we've all been waiting to meet that will land at some point in front of the Washington Monument will enter and tell us this is the secret to the Golden Dome. But barring that, no, absolutely. You're not going to get anywhere with this, but it'll be a brilliant money pit. And that's the sad part. And it won't work because given the state of current technology, if you've learned anything from the war in eastern Ukraine, anything from what you've just seen with Israel and Iran, it is that any defensive system can be overwhelmed in time by an opponent's missiles. If you build enough missiles, fire enough missiles, you will overwhelm and destroy the air defense. And just to give you a quick anecdote, during the Second World War, we in the Royal Air Force, and I would include the Royal Canadian Air Force in that connection, lost 18,000 bombers trying to penetrate German air defenses, which for the time were state of the art. And ultimately, they succeeded. But they had to lose 18,000 bombers to get there. I don't think we're in a position to do that sort of thing anymore. And I don't think that we can produce enough anti-missiles to protect ourselves from a determined offensive strike. And that ultimately is the foundation or basis for mutual assured destruction, which frankly has kept the peace. And there were many people at the time when the SDI business started, and I hear these things now from people in the scientific community saying, you know, we don't want to create the illusion that we have the answer that will solve the mad dilemma. In other words, that we can get past mutual assured destruction. And the danger is that your potential adversaries or opponents will then double down and build that many more missiles to penetrate your defense. So it's kind of a pointless exercise, but it does promise to make a lot of people on the Hill, that is in Congress, as well as a lot of corporate heads and what we call shareholders, very, very wealthy. So I suspect on that basis alone, it will get off the ground initially.
And I think Mark Carney will buy into it because for the same reasons you've mentioned, because of corporate cronyism and because he wants to look like he's right on side with Donald Trump and all this. And I have to say you're quite right about Bomber Command's fatality figures in the Second World War. The only more unsafe place to be was in a U-boat in the Second World War. The fatality rate was like 60%. Incredible. Not casualty, fatality rate in Bomber Command. And I've spoken to so many veterans over the years who said it was like a nightmare going out at 10 o'clock at night and being attacked when you couldn't even see the aircraft coming at you. And it was a horrible experience. But
you can't handle the truth.
Resolve to resist